the secret of health, success, and power. We all remember with what intense delight, as children, we listened to the never-tiring fairy tale. How eagerly we followed the fluctuating fortunes of the good boy or girl, ever protected in the hour of crisis from the evil machinations of the scheming witch, the cruel giant, or the wicked king. And our little hearts never faltered for the fate of the hero or heroine, nor do we doubt their ultimate triumph over all their enemies, for we knew that the fairies were infallible, and that they would never desert those who had consecrated themselves to the good and the true. And what unspeakable joy pulsated within us when the fairy queen, bringing all her magic to bear at the critical moment, scattered all the darkness and trouble, and granted them the complete satisfaction of all their hopes, and they were, happily ever after. With the accumulating years and an ever-increasing intimacy with the so-called realities of life, our beautiful fairy world became obliterated, and its wonderful inhabitants were relegated, in the archives of memory, to the shadowy and unreal. And we thought we were wise and strong in thus leaving forever the land of childish dreams. But as we re-become little children in the wondrous world of wisdom, we shall return again to the inspiring dreams of childhood, and find that they are, after all, realities. The fairy folk, so small and nearly always invisible, yet possessed of an all-conquering and magical power, who bestow upon the good health, wealth, and happiness, along with all the gifts of nature in lavish profusion, start again into reality and become immortalized in the soul realm of him who, by growth in wisdom, has entered into a knowledge of the power of thought and the laws which govern the inner world of being. To him the fairies live again as thought people, thought messengers, thought powers working in harmony with the overruling good. And they who, day by day, endeavor to harmonize their hearts with the heart of the supreme good, do in reality acquire true health, wealth, and happiness. There is no protection to compare with goodness, and by goodness I do not mean a mere outward conformity to the rules of morality. I mean pure thought, noble aspiration, unselfish love, and freedom from vainglory. To dwell continually in good thoughts is to throw around oneself a psychic atmosphere of sweetness and power which leaves its impress upon all who come in contact with it. As the rising sun puts to rout the helpless shadows, so are all the impotent forces of evil put to flight by the searching rays of positive thought, which shine forth from a heart made strong in purity and faith. Where there is sterling faith and uncompromising purity, there is health, there is success, there is power. In such a one, disease, failure, and disaster can find no lodgment, for there is nothing on which they can feed. Even physical conditions are largely determined by mental states, and to this truth the scientific world is rapidly being drawn. The old, materialistic belief that a man is what his body makes him is rapidly passing away, and is being replaced by the inspiring belief that a man is superior to his body, and that his body is what he makes it by the power of thought. Men everywhere are ceasing to believe that a man is despairing because he is dyspeptic, and are coming to understand that he is dyspeptic because he is despairing, and in the near future, the fact that all disease has its origin in the mind will become common knowledge. There is no evil in the universe but has its root and origin in the mind, and sin, sickness, sorrow, and affliction do not, in reality, belong to the universal order, are not inherent in the nature of things, but are the direct outcome of our ignorance of the right relations of things. According to tradition, there once lived, in India, a school of philosophers who led a life of such absolute purity and simplicity that they commonly reached the age of 150 years, and to fall sick was looked upon by them as an unpardonable disgrace, for it was considered to indicate a violation of law. The sooner we realize and acknowledge that sickness, far from being the arbitrary visitation of an offended God, or the test of an unwise providence, is the result of our own error or sin, the sooner we shall enter upon the highway of health. Disease comes to those who attract it, to those whose minds and bodies are receptive to it, and flees from those whose strong, pure, and positive thought sphere generates healing and life-giving currents. If you are given to anger, worry, jealousy, greed, or any other inharmonious state of mind and expect perfect physical health, you are expecting the impossible, for you are continually sowing the seeds of disease in your mind. Such conditions of mind are carefully shunned by the wise man, for he knows them to be far more dangerous than a bad drain or an infected house. If you would be free from all physical aches and pains, and would enjoy perfect physical harmony, then put your mind in order and harmonize your thoughts. Think joyful thoughts, think loving thoughts. Let the elixir of goodwill course through your veins, and you'll need no other medicine. Put away your jealousies, your suspicions, your worries, your hatreds, your selfish indulgences, and you'll put away your dyspepsia, your biliousness, your nervousness and aching joints. If you'll persist in clinging to these debilitating and demoralizing habits of mind, then do not complain when your body is laid low with sickness. The following story illustrates the close relation that exists between habits of mind and bodily conditions. A certain man was afflicted with a painful disease, and he tried one physician after another, but all to no purpose. He then visited towns which were famous for their curative waters, and after having bathed in them all, his disease was more painful than ever. One night he dreamed that a presence came to him and said, "Brother, hast thou tried all means of cure?" And he replied, "I have tried all." "Nay," said the presence, "come with me, and I will show thee a healing bath which has escaped thy notice." The afflicted man followed, and the presence led him to a clear pool of water, and said, "Plunge thyself in this water, and thou shalt surely recover," and thereupon vanished. The man plunged into the water, and on coming out, lo, his disease had left him, and at the same moment he saw written above the pool the word, "Renounce." Upon waking, the full meaning of his dream flashed across his mind, and looking within he discovered that he had, all along, been a victim to a sinful indulgence, and he vowed that he would renounce it forever. He carried out his vow, and from that day his affliction began to leave him, and in a short time he was completely restored to health. Many people complain that they have broken down through overwork. In the majority of such cases, the breakdown is more frequently the result of foolishly wasted energy. If you would secure health, you must learn to work without friction. To become anxious or excited, or to worry over needless details, is to invite a breakdown. Work, whether of brain or body, is beneficial and health-giving, and the man who can work with a steady and calm persistency, freed from all anxiety and worry, and with his mind utterly oblivious to all but the work he has in hand, will not only accomplish far more than the man who is always hurried and anxious, but he will retain his health, a boon which the other quickly forfeits. True health and true success go together, for they are inseparably intertwined in the thought realm. As mental harmony produces bodily health, so it also leads to a harmonious sequence in the actual working out of one's plans. Order your thoughts and you will order your life. Pour the oil of tranquility upon the turbulent waters of the passions and prejudices, and the tempests of misfortune, howsoever they may threaten, will be powerless to wreck the bark of your soul as it threads its way across the ocean of life. And if that bark be piloted by a cheerful and never-failing faith, its course will be doubly sure, and many perils will pass it by which would otherwise attack it. By the power of faith, every enduring work is accomplished. Faith in the Supreme, faith in the overruling law, faith in your work, and in your power to accomplish that work. Here is the rock upon which you must build if you would achieve, if you would stand and not fall. To follow, under all circumstances, the highest promptings within you, to be always true to the divine self, to rely upon the inward light, the inward voice, and to pursue your purpose with a fearless and restful heart, believing that the future will yield unto you the meed of every thought and effort, knowing that the laws of the universe can never fail, and that your own will come back to you with mathematical exactitude. This is faith, and the living of faith. By the power of such a faith, the dark waters of uncertainty are divided, every mountain of difficulty crumbles away, and the believing soul passes on unharmed. Strive, O reader, to acquire, above everything, the priceless possession of this dauntless faith, for it is the talisman of happiness, of success, of peace, of power, of all that makes life great and superior to suffering. Build upon such a faith, and you build upon the rock of the eternal, and with the materials of the eternal, and the structure that you erect will never be dissolved, for it will transcend all the accumulations of material luxuries and riches, the end of which is dust. Whether you are hurled into the depths of sorrow, or lifted upon the heights of joy, ever retain your hold upon this faith, ever return to it as your rock of refuge, and keep your feet firmly planted upon its immortal and immovable base. Centered in such a faith, you will become possessed of such a spiritual strength as will shatter, like so many toys of glass, all the forces of evil that are hurled against you, and you will achieve a success such as the mere striver after worldly gain can never know or even dream of. If ye have faith, and doubt not, ye shall not only do this, but if ye shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. There are those today, men and women tabernacled in flesh and blood, who have realized this faith, who live in it and by it day by day, and who, having put it to the utmost test, have entered into the possession of its glory and peace. Such have sent out the word of command, and the mountains of sorrow and disappointment, of mental weariness and physical pain have passed from them, and have been cast into the sea of oblivion. If you will become possessed of this faith, you will not need to trouble about your success or failure, and success will come. You will not need to become anxious about results, but will work joyfully and peacefully, knowing that right thoughts and right efforts will inevitably bring about right results. I know a lady who has entered into many blissful satisfactions, and recently a friend remarked to her, "Oh, how fortunate you are. You only have to wish for a thing, and it comes to you." And it did, indeed, appear so on the surface, but in reality all the blessedness that has entered into this woman's life is the direct outcome of the inward state of blessedness which she has, throughout life, been cultivating and training toward perfection. Mere wishing brings nothing but disappointment. It is living that tells. The foolish wish and grumble, the wise work and wait, and this woman had worked without and within, but especially within upon heart and soul, and with the invisible hands of the Spirit she had built up, with the precious stones of faith, hope, joy, devotion and love, a fair temple of light, whose glorifying radiance was ever round about her. It beamed in her eye, it shone through her countenance, it vibrated in her voice, and all who came into her presence felt its captivating spell. And as with her, so with you. Your success, your failure, your influence, your whole life you carry about you, for your dominant trends of thought are the determining factors in your destiny. Send forth loving, stainless, and happy thoughts, and blessings will fall into your hands, and your table will be spread with the cloth of peace. Send forth hateful, impure, and unhappy thoughts, and curses will rain down upon you, and fear and unrest will wait upon your pillow. You are the unconditional maker of your fate, be that fate what it may. Every moment you are sending forth from you the influences which make or mar your life. Let your heart grow large and loving and unselfish, and great and lasting will be your influence and success, even though you make little money. Confine it within the narrow limits of self-interest, and even though you become a millionaire, your influence and success at the final reckoning will be found to be utterly insignificant. Cultivate, then, This pure and unselfish spirit, and combined with purity and faith, singleness of purpose, and you are evolving from within the elements, not only of abounding health and enduring success, but of greatness and power. If your present position is distasteful to you, and your heart is not in your work, nevertheless perform your duties with scrupulous diligence, and whilst resting your mind in the idea that the better position and greater opportunities are waiting for you, ever keep an active mental outlook for budding possibilities, so that when the critical moment arrives and the new channel presents itself, you will step into it with your mind fully prepared for the undertaking, and with that intelligence and foresight which is born of mental discipline. Whatever your task may be, concentrate your whole mind upon it. Throw into it all the energy of which you are capable. The faultless completion of small tasks leads inevitably to larger tasks. See to it that you rise by steadily climbing, and you will never fall. And herein lies the secret of true power. Learn, by constant practice, how to husband your resources, and to concentrate them, at any moment, upon a given point. The foolish waste all their mental and spiritual energy in frivolity, foolish chatter, or selfish argument, not to mention wasteful physical excesses. If you would acquire overcoming power, you must cultivate poise and passivity. You must be able to stand alone. All power is associated with immovability. The mountain, the massive rock, the storm-tried oak, all speak to us of power, because of their combined solitary grandeur and defiant fixity, while the shifting sand, the yielding twig, and the waving reed speak to us of weakness, because they are movable and non-resistant, and are utterly useless when detached from their fellows. He is the man of power who, when all of his fellows are swayed by some emotion or passion, remains calm and unmoved. He only is fitted to command and control who has succeeded in commanding and controlling himself. The hysterical, the fearful, the thoughtless and frivolous, let such seek company, or they will fall for lack of support. But the calm, the fearless, the thoughtful, and let such seek the solitude of the forest, forward, the desert, and chapter 1 of the path of prosperity. And to their power, more power will be added. This is a LibriVox recording, and they will more and more successfully stem the psychic currents and whirlpools for more information mankind, or to volunteer. Passion is not power. It is the abuse of power, the dispersion of power. Recording by Sunny Abdullah. Passion is like a furious storm, the path to prosperity, fiercely and by James Allen, upon the embattled rock. Forward. Whilst power is like the rock itself, I looked around upon the world, which remains silent, and saw that it was shadowed by sorrow and scorched by the fierce fires of suffering. That was a manifestation of true power. When Martin Luther, for the cause, wearied with the persuasions of his fearful friends, could not find it, who were doubtful as to his safety should he go to Worms, could not find replied, I looked within, if there were as many devils in found Worms there both as there are tiles on the housetops, I would go. Cause. And when Benjamin Disraeli broke down in his first parliamentary speech, and brought upon himself the derision of the House, the law of love, that was an exhibition of germinal power when he exclaimed, adjustment to that law, the day will come when you will consider it an honour to listen to the truth of a conquered mind and a quiet and obedient heart, whom I knew, passing through continual reverses which should help men and women, was mocked by his friends and told to desist from further effort, and he replied, worldly or unworldly, the time is not far distant when you will marvel at my good fortune and success. He showed that he was possessed of that silent and irresistible power which is taking him over innumerable difficulties, and the dream remained with me, and crowned his life at last became substantial. If you now I send it forth into the world on its mission of healing and blessedness, and the beginning of power is likewise the beginning of wisdom of those who are waiting. You must commence by overcoming those purposeless trivialities to which you have hitherto been a willing victim. Chapter 1. The boisterous and uncontrolled laughter, slander, unrest, and idle talk, and pain, and sorrow, and joking are the shadows of life. All these must be put on one side, as so much waste of valuable energy. No mind has not been tossed upon the dark waters of trouble. St. Paul never showed his wonderful insight into the hidden laws of human progress to greater advantage than when he warned the Ephesians against foolish talking and jesting, which is not convenient, where the great destroyers, for to dwell habitually in such practices have not is to destroy all spiritual power heart from heart. And casting as you succeed in rendering yourself impervious to such mental dissipation, in the strong, you will begin to understand what true power is, all are
and
more
you
or
will
less
then commence to
fast-caught,
grapple with the more powerful desires and appetites,
unhappiness,
which hold your
and
soul in
misfortune
bondage,
wait upon mankind,
and bar the way to power, and your further
the object of
progress will then be
escaping
made clear.
or in some way mitigating this overshadowing
Above all,
gloom.
be of single aim.
Men and women rush
Have a
blindly
legitimate
into
and useful
innumerable
purpose,
devices,
and devote yourself
pathways by
unreservedly
which they
to it.
fondly hope to enter
Let nothing
into
draw
a
you
happiness
aside.
which will not pass
Remember
away.
that the double-minded man is unstable
Such are
in
the
all his
drunkard and the
ways.
harlot, who
Be
revel
eager
in
to
sensual
learn, but slow to
excitements.
beg. Have
Such
a
is the
thorough
exclusive
understanding of your
aesthete,
work,
who
and
shuts
let it be
himself
your
out
own.
from the sorrows of the world,
And as you
and
proceed,
surrounds himself with
ever following
innovating
the inward
luxuries.
guide, the infallible voice,
Such is he who
you will
thirsts
pass
for
on
wealth
from
or
victory
fame,
to victory,
and subordinates
and will
all
rise
things
step
to the
by step
achievement
to
of that
higher
object.
resting places.
And
And your
such are they who
ever-broadening
seek
outlook will
consolidation
gradually
in the
reveal to
performance
you
of
the
religious
essential
rites.
beauty and purpose of life.
And to all the happiness sought seems to
Self-purified,
come,
health will
and
be
the
yours.
soul, for a
Faith
time,
protected,
is lulled
success
into
will
a
be
sweet
yours.
security and an
Self-governed
intoxicating
power will
forgetfulness
be
of the
yours.
existence of evil.
And all that you do will prosper.
But the day of disease
For,
comes at last,
ceasing to
or
be a
some great
disjointed
sorrow,
unit,
temptation,
self-enslaved,
or
you will be in
misfortune
harmony with the
breaks
great
suddenly
law,
in on the unfortified
working
soul,
no longer against,
and the
but
fabric
with
of its fancied
the
happiness
universal
is
life,
torn to shreds.
the eternal good.
So over the head of every
And what
personal
health you
joy
gain, it will remain
hangs the
with you.
Damocletian sword of pain,
What success you achieve
ready
will be beyond
at any
all human
moment
computation,
to fall and
and will
crush
never
the soul
pass
of
away.
him who was unprotected by
And
knowledge.
what influence and power you wield
The
will
child
continue to
cries to be
increase
a man
throughout
or
the
woman.
ages,
The man
for it
and
will be a
woman
part
sigh
of that
for the lost
unchangeable
felicity of
principle which
childhood.
supports the universe.
The poor man chafes
This,
under the
then,
chains of poverty by
is the
which he is
secret of
bound,
health, a pure
and
heart,
the rich
and
man
a well-ordered
often lives in
mind.
fear of poverty,
This is the
or
secret of
scours the world in
success,
search of an elusive
an
shadow
unfaltering
he
faith,
calls happiness.
and a wisely directed purpose.
Sometimes the soul
and
feels
to
that
reign
it has
in,
found a secure
with
peace and
unfaltering will,
happiness in
the
adopting
dark
a
seed
certain
of desire.
religion,
This
in
is the
embracing an
secret of
intellectual
power.
philosophy, or in building up an intellectual
All
or
ways
artistic
are
ideal.
waiting my feet to tread.
But some
The
overpowering
light and dark,
temptation proves the
the
religion to
living
be
and the dead,
inadequate or insufficient.
the broad and narrow
The
way,
theoretical philosophy
high and
is
low,
found to be a useless
the
prop,
good and bad,
or in a
and
moment,
with quick step or
the
slow,
idealistic statue upon
I
which the
now may enter
devotee
any
has
way
for
I
years
will,
been laboring,
and
is
find,
shattered into
by
fragments
walking,
at his feet.
which is good,
Is
which
there,
ill,
then,
and all
no way
good
of
things
escape
my
from
wandering
pain and
feet
sorrow?
await. If
Are
I
there
but
no means
come,
by which bonds
with
of
vow
evil may be
inviolate,
broken? Is
unto the
permanent
narrow,
happiness,
high and
secure
holy way
prosperity,
of
and
heart-born
abiding
purity,
peace a
and
foolish
therein
dream?
stay,
No,
walking,
there is a way,
secure from him
and
who
I speak
taunts
it
and
with
scorns,
gladness, by
to
which
flowery
evil can be
meads
slain forever.
across the path of thorns.
There is a process by which disease,
and I may stand where health,
poverty,
success,
or any adverse
and
condition
power
or
await my
circumstance can be
coming,
put on one side,
if,
never to return.
each fleeting hour,
There is
I
a
cling
method
to
by
love
which a
and
permanent
patience,
prosperity can be
and
secured,
abide with stainlessness,
free from all fear of
and
the
never
return
step
of
aside
adversity.
from high integrity.
And there is a practice by which
So shall I
unbroken
see,
and
at
unending
last, the
peace
land of
and bliss
immortality,
can be partaken of and
and I may
realized.
seek and find. I may
And the beginning
achieve,
of the way which leads
I
to
may
this
not
glorious
claim,
realization
but,
is the acquirement
losing,
of a
may
right
retrieve.
understanding of the nature of evil.
The law bends not for me,
It is not
but I
sufficient
must
to
bend
deny
unto
or
the law.
ignore evil. It
If
must
I would
be
reach the end
understood.
of my afflictions,
It is not enough to pray to God
if
to
I would
remove
restore
the
my
evil.
soul to light
You
and
must
life,
find out why it is
and
there,
weep no more,
and what lesson it has for you.
not mine the
It
arrogant
is of no
and
avail
selfish
to fret
claim,
and fume
to all good
and chafe
things,
at the chains which
be
bind
mine
you.
the lowly aim,
You must know why,
to seek
and
and
how you
find,
abound.
to know and comprehend. Therefore,
Reader,
and wisdom ward
you
all
must get
holy
outside
footsteps
yourself,
wend,
and must begin
nothing
to
is mine
examine
to
and
claim or to
understand
command,
yourself.
but all
You
is
must
mine
cease to be a
know
disobedient
and
child in the
understand.
school of experience, and must begin to
End
learn,
of chapter 5.
with humility and
Recording
patience,
by Sunny
the
Abdullah.
lessons that are set for your edification and ultimate perfection. For evil, when rightly understood, is found to be not an unlimited power or principle in the universe, but a passing phase of human experience, and it therefore becomes a teacher to those who are willing to learn. Evil is not an abstract something outside yourself. It is an experience in your own heart, and by patiently examining and rectifying your heart, you will be gradually led into the discovery of the origin and nature of evil, which will necessarily be followed by its complete eradication. All evil is corrective and remedial, and is therefore not permanent. It is rooted in ignorance of the true nature and relation of things, and so long as we remain in that state of ignorance, we remain subject to evil. There is no evil in the universe which is not the result of ignorance, and which would not, if we were ready and willing to learn its lesson, lead us to higher wisdom, and then vanish away. But men remain in evil, and it does not pass away because men are not willing or prepared to learn the lesson which it came to teach them. I knew a child who, every night when its mother took it to bed, cried to be allowed to play with the candle, and one night, when the mother was off guard for a moment, the child took hold of the candle. The inevitable result followed, and the child never wished to play with the candle again. By its one foolish act it learned perfectly the lesson of obedience, and entered into the knowledge that fire burns. And this incident is a complete illustration of the nature, meaning, and ultimate result of all sin and evil. As the child suffered through its own ignorance of the real nature of fire, so older children suffer through their ignorance of the real nature of the things which they weep for and strive after, and which harm them when they are secured. The only difference being that in the latter case, the ignorance and evil are more deeply rooted and obscure. Evil has always been symbolized by darkness, and good by light, and hidden within the symbol is contained the perfect interpretation, the reality. For, just as light always floods the universe, and darkness is only a mere speck or shadow cast by a small body intercepting a few rays of the illimitable light, so the light of the Supreme Good is the positive and life-giving power which floods the universe, and evil, the insignificant shadow cast by the self that intercepts and shuts off the illuminating rays which strive for entrance. When night folds the world in its black impenetrable mantle, no matter how dense the darkness, it covers but the small space of half our little planet, while the whole universe is ablaze with living light, and every soul knows that it will awake in the light in the morning. Know, then, that when the dark night of sorrow, pain, or misfortune settles down upon your soul, and you stumble along with weary and uncertain steps, that you are merely intercepting your own personal desires between yourself and the boundless light of joy and bliss, and the dark shadow that covers you is cast by none and nothing but yourself. And just as the darkness without is but a negative shadow, an unreality which comes from nowhere, goes to nowhere, and has no abiding dwelling place, so the darkness within is equally a negative shadow, passing over the evolving and light-born soul. But, I fancy I hear someone say, why pass through the darkness of evil at all? Because, by ignorance, you have chosen to do so, and because, by doing so, you may understand both good and evil, and may more appreciate the light by having passed through the darkness. As evil is the direct outcome of ignorance, so, when the lessons of evil are fully learned, ignorance passes away, and wisdom takes its place. But as a disobedient child refuses to learn its lessons at school, so it is possible to refuse to learn the lessons of experience, and thus remain in continual darkness, and to suffer continually recurring punishments in the form of disease, disappointment, and sorrow. He, therefore, who would shake himself free of the evil which encompasses him, must be willing and ready to learn, and must be prepared to undergo that disciplinary process without which no grain of wisdom or abiding happiness and peace can be secured. A man may shut himself up in a dark room, and deny that the light exists, but it is everywhere without, and darkness exists only in his own little room. So you may shut out the light of truth, or you may begin to pull down the walls of prejudice, self-seeking, and error which you have built around yourself, and so let in the glorious and omnipresent light. By earnest self-examination, strive to realize, and not merely hold as a theory, that evil is a passing phase, a self-created shadow, that all your pains, sorrows, and misfortunes have come to you by a process of undeviating and absolutely perfect law, have come to you because you deserve and require them, and that by first enduring, and then understanding them, you may be made stronger, wiser, nobler. When you have fully entered into this realization, you will be in a position to mold your own circumstances, to transmute all evil into good, and to weave, with a master hand, the fabric of your destiny. What of the night, O watchman, seest thou yet? The glimmering dawn upon the mountain heights, the golden herald of the light of lights. Are his fair feet upon the hilltop set? Cometh he yet to chase away the gloom, and with it all the demons of the night? Strike yet his darting rays upon thy sight? Hearest thou his voice, the sound of error's doom? The morning cometh, lover of the light. Even now he gilds with gold the mountain's brow. Dimly I see the path whereon even now his shining feet are set toward the night. Darkness shall pass away, and all the things that love the darkness and that hate the light shall disappear forever with the night. Rejoice, for thus the speeding herald sings.